Here's another sassafras, and it's a different, yeah, it's a different tree, so it's got company. Something eating it already. Right here, I'm walking in the ditch now. A maple blew over. It was uprooted, and it blew over, and I was kind of relieved it didn't land in the road. But then I was also delighted when I found out it hadn't killed it. It's still alive. See those maple, well, not there, I don't know about there, but up here you can see there's leaves on it still, maple leaves on it. So it may live a very, very long time because I'm going to leave it alone. It basically may have coppiced itself. And coming across it is something you probably will recognize. Those leaves right there, this is grape. This is a wild grape. Too bitter for people to normally eat here. All right, we're going to go up a little bit further here to see the source of the water. We're heading up there, and you know, look how different it is now. This understory is so open because there's all those leaves above. Well, here's a mayapple. What's left, or well, a mayapple still. It's just already done its thing. I mean, it comes out in early May here. That's something that you basically only see here in the woods. And pretty soon we're going to come to some greenbrier. Well, I'll shut the camera off, I guess, until I find it. But I do want to say that right up in there was the one place on this whole farm that I knew that there were lady slippers. But for years and years, I kept going back, and maybe I just wasn't there quite at the right time. They were the pink lady slippers, so I haven't seen them in decades, really. Aha! That's rattlesnake weed, I think, or rattlesnake flower, or something like that. There's a little hickory, like what we saw out in the field. And here are ferns. Ferns, of course, really like it where it's moist. And to my knowledge, there are two kinds of ferns on this land, and I'll be able to show you the other kind in a little bit. Here we are at the prise d'eau, the water trap, where I turn the water away from the natural drain, which is over there, and I have two places that I do it. And that supply of water right there, well, it isn't quite enough right now because it's been dry, but that under not dry conditions, it will supply all that area that we were looking at before out through there. There's a little oak, of course. This I probably wouldn't have noticed, except that I'm looking at plants right now. That's a sweet birch. This one, and there's another one, that's the one I saw first. This, if you take off the stem, strip the leaves off it and chew the stem, it's really sweet to the taste. When I would have children out here on field trips, I'd show them that and say, here's a tree you can eat. There's greenbrier. I knew there was some right around here. Boy, that stuff, when it gets thick, there's worse briar plants, but it'll really tangle you up, that stuff. There's Japanese barberry. It is invasive. It's regarded as a problem tree by so many in Pennsylvania. And when we get down in there, that area that had been a road and where all the activity was with the mining and the logging, it's all full of barberry. And I think in this coming winter, when everything else has died back, I'm probably going to trim most, if not all of that away. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sweet birch. You don't see them get really, really big very often. There was one that I knew of on land that now belongs to my sister, that when they were logging that land, I told them to leave that. They were only supposed to take the dead oak and half the living, and they took that sweet birch, and it was really big. I was pretty put out. I think that ended up costing them a couple $1,000 because the forester got after him for that. This is a fairly old stand of white oak, and this was an area that, as long as I've been here, I talked my parents into making the loggers leave this alone because I wanted there to be some old growth here, and they did, and I'm glad. Now right out through there you can see a lighter spot. That's where a huge old white oak came crashing down, and it opened light down into the forest. Not right now, I'm not going to go over there, but later I will. Now, haha, look, you can see that the pigs have gone to work on this forest floor. To the left of the fence, they've begun to root stuff up. To the right, they haven't. I've been wondering when they were going to do that. I often refer to my pigs as archaeologists, which they certainly are. And they've already here begun to reveal something. Right there is an old log drag. I knew about it before the pigs got here, but now they're making it even more clear that it's here. I wasn't so sure what this on the left was, and I still am not, but they'll end up presenting the whole story before they're done. See if you can see this. There's unrooted up log drag, and here's rooted up log drag. And the fact that it's humped up on the left and humped up on the right, that's got me wondering if this wasn't to drag logs when a team of 2 horses were dragging, and those were where the horses were to walk. If it's just 1 horse, it's just a single dugout spot where the log drags through. Now the forest floor here clearly is covered with little baby oaks, many baby oaks, and that's, now you see the pigs didn't go right after them. That's another thing like the hickory. They'll eat acorns, of course, but they tend to, once the acorn has made itself into a tree, begun to, and they'll eat hickory nuts too, of course, but then they leave the tree alone. That's almost a form of cultivation in a way. I don't know. You tell me. Moss. The only time you see moss out in the field really is if it's just so stony that nothing will grow there. In the woods, it's fairly common. That almost looks like blueberry, doesn't it? I don't see much of that in this area. I stepped across the fence because I wanted to show you this spot, which for years and years really mystified me. I could not imagine why they would have gone to all that work. I mean, I'm talking guys 200 years ago. Well, I didn't know. I thought maybe a backhoe had done it, but no. It's a log drag. Now I understand. And it came through here, and it went on out. You know, I think so much about the iron mining that was done here that I tend to forget that timbering was a huge industry in this area. And as it goes out there, that's going to be an area that, with the pigs' help, here's some greenbrier, with the pigs' help, I'm going to clear up that mystery. The ground gets moist down through there, and therefore the ferns are there. But in the winter, I'll be able to tell a whole lot better. Now I'm near where that tree blew over, came crashing down. That thing is huge. What you can't tell from this angle is that trunk is double. There's a second trunk right beyond the first one. And look how much light that has let in to this forest. It's going to have a real big effect on what grows there. This no doubt jumps out at you. I'm going to have a lot of fun here. I'm going to undo what you see, but I'm going to build a dam. I'll call it a dam. It's really a prise d'eau. It'll be just, oh, and I had, years and years ago, I had looked up, is this legal, what I'm doing? And I found out that in Pennsylvania, at that time when I looked it up, kids or anyone could build a dam in a creek 2 feet, up to 2 feet high without having to get a permit and all the rest of the stuff. I think to allow kids to play in the creek, it did no harm, up to 2 feet high. But see, most of my prise d'eau, they don't impound water. This one actually will. I'm going to put it right at the confluence between these 2 smaller creeks, and that's about the best place. And why I'm doing it is because I want to get water over into this area when it turns dry. Well, I'll tell you more about later. But the skunk cabbage, and there's mayapple. The skunk cabbage, which is now past its prime by far, is just, it was a solid stand. I think it's going to be less so since the pigs are in here. They won't eat it, but I think they're going to disrupt it enough with their rooting and then draining it and stuff that there'll always be some skunk cabbage, I hope, but it won't be dense like that. You're going to hear much more about this area. Oh, and right there ahead, I'll go a little bit further before I stop, is a mine face. Maybe I'll just walk up here right now. That was very, very actively mined. That mine face from here all the way down to the paved road. This video is already getting too long, so I'll stop, I think. Well, I didn't quite stop because I came to this, another tree that was blown over, this by a north wind, and this is a maple. You can tell by the bark, really. But once again, it didn't die. It didn't die. It's still growing up there. It's full of maple leaves, and if it stays, it's going to stay a long time if I can help it. And there is a hemlock, my mother's favorite tree, and possibly mine. They have some problems, but there's very, very few hemlocks on the 37 acres that we have. Here's another one you can see much better. How about that for a pair of shades of green?